Thanks to you for joining me this hour, because even on the hottest days of the year, you can see men at the butt crack of dawn begging for your attention. And it's unlike social media, which is basically a highlight reel of everyone's life. The internet is largely inauthentic and sometimes a downright lie. That's why when you go outside to get coffee in the morning, you are stunned by the amount of suffering people endure on a daily basis. Suffering that is largely acceptable to the people experiencing it. Well, acceptable under certain drunk conditions. After 3 declines to finance strangers' morning turn-up sessions, in this or any other situation, you no longer feel that rising heat of anger bubbling up in your guts anymore. Thankfully, you have boundaries, so you don't feel bad for saying no. Your heart is challenged but stronger than it was the day before. Immediate feelings of diarrhea after being exposed to so much pain and suffering right outside of your door. It's beginning to be less of a burden on your emotions. Just saying no wouldn't suffice anyway. So largely, you ignore requests for attention, like the one that I experienced this morning. The simple truth is that you must mainly eat your feelings like a piece of dry toast. That's the simple truth. So you delete Snapchat and Instagram because your only true friends are Team Snapchat and Mark Zuckerberg anyway. But today is different. You tried. Well, you focused and saw a man sitting on the ground, nursing beer wrapped in swaddling brown paper. Beyond that man's Beyond that man's slurred speech, angry response to your no, and his dingy red eyes, you tried to see the soul. But that soul belonged to a child stuck in time. So you can't look away from his misery. You want to engage the sadness. You want to extend the best parts of you, just like every spiritual leader in history taught you. Be a martyr. You want to help. You can't always tap into your introvert genes by reading or painting alone in your apartment, because sometimes people need you and you need them. You know that 99% of people don't consistently read or even value the act of doing so. As a result, most people almost never have anything to offer outside of preloaded notions of white supremacy. Thank you, Donald Trump. You also know our society never built a ritual around healthy habits or hobbies, for that matter, outside of watching Love and Hip Hop or Big Brother. And full disclosure, there's nothing wrong with either of those programs. But as a result, you feel lonely and you are tired of feeling lonely. Reality TV is not reality. Every night you sleep cuddling with a pillow or a teddy bear of your choice because you crave the physical attention and the affection. Nothing beats having a real person there, with all the sweat and the snoring and the stank breath to remind you that you and that person are still a human. You are part of something bigger, as Beyonce would add. It's bigger than your Bible or your round TV-sized pillow you've been holding on to since you're a baby. You'll probably die holding on to that tattered stuffed animal. But it would serve as a reminder to you that you have emotions flowing through every part of your body, every minute of every day. And the moment those emotions stop, you are no longer here. You're dead. You can't fuck with that stuffed animal too long, so it's important to manage your particular frustrations with sex, with affection, with friendship, with just random encounters with the public. As a result, you've built a lifetime of coping skills because you know deep down that being a human is some sort of advantage over other creatures, or opposable thumbs in our prefrontal cortices and things of that nature. Oh, by the way, my name is Devon, and you are listening to Center of the Sun podcast. This is part 1 of a series of episodes that will help you understand the meaning of this weird-ass theory called the holographic theory of existence. By the end of this series, these series of episodes, because we're still in season 3, you'll recognize patterns of social conditioning and the manipulation that happens from other humans, but you can see those patterns in nature and in other people. And then by the end of this episode, you will begin building worlds you want to see. When you visit the link in the description of this podcast, it will become 1,000 times easier to unlock the secrets of navigating this thing called life. The principles you learn today will start you on the shortest path to stop working that dead-end job, paying off debt sooner, or making your husband happier by being able to afford more nights on the town. Imagine that. Then get a continual flow of bags. The kind that include money. Your family will think you're hiding out because you don't need them anymore. As much as connecting with other humans is important, don't lose sight on the very real fact. If you cannot take care of yourself, how can you take care of somebody else? Well, with the information I'm going to share with you today, your emotions can no longer be hijacked. So, when you're done listening, visit the link in the description and you will be pleased. As I've spoken about numerous times before, I'm an affiliate of secretenergy.com. So, though there are various conscious dietary supplements and gifts that can be purchased for very low prices, the best use of my affiliation has not been the purchasing of wares and goods. It's actually been the amount of information that Seven Bomar, the founder of this website, shares very frequently. That unknown system is what we call the esoteric energy system, and it is one of the most unknown and underdeveloped parts of us as creatures that is constantly being challenged by several external factors. All of this is happening in subtle ways, so I'm going to put a spotlight on guess who? Satan! Lucifer, the devil! Well, not actually, because your imagination is being hijacked by ideas that are based in fear and for the purpose of population control, and this is not a conspiracy theory day. This is true. Literally, this is what Satan and Lucifer and all of these religious ideas, the purpose of them is not for your afterlife. It's for your current life. And the founder of Secret Energy, Seven Bomar, has spent a lifetime, from what I've gathered, to committing himself to understanding and disseminating nearly, when I say nearly lost, it is nearly lost ancient knowledge about how our minds and our bodies work. And because I'm a researcher, of course, I have to also find several other, and when I say several, I mean more than 3, independent sources that echo the same information that he echoes on a daily basis. And it goes on, and it's a trend that is enlightening to the general population for no money. So if you can find people that can teach you about this kind of stuff without having to pay, those are the people that you want to talk to, or listen to rather. In addition, I have access to all kinds of academic journals, thank you, and data, you're welcome, to validate the claims that I uncovered today. So you're going to learn about something a little less evidence-based today, but generally, I pull journals and things, but today I'm pulling YouTube videos and actual people who have anecdotal evidence of these basic truths nonetheless. So here's the bottom line. You are discouraged from exploring your true unique self. The last time you saw a movie is actually the best metaphor that Seven Bomar gives of how we think as human beings. Basically, when we experience something, it doesn't matter what it is, a flower, a bee, laying in your bed, whatever it is, instead of, we kind of like think in terms of language and words, but actually that's not what's happening. If you actually map the brain and look at the brain waves, instead of a string of words flowing through your mind, there is one big movie, and some people call this a neural loop or whatever it is. There's just one big movie that is playing in your head. So, when I say that your imagination is being hijacked, what I mean is that your thought process of how you think of the world and how you think of yourself, how you've been taught to think in general, is being hijacked and has been since the day you were born. On a YouTube video that Seven presented a few weeks ago, he compared social conditioning to the literal making of film. So he suggests that certain humans know how to manipulate your emotions because you have already been conditioned to think a certain preloaded way when you were born, i.e. white supremacy, to believe that there is this inherent structure in our species and that people with lighter skin are somehow better. That whole notion is the hijacking, and your emotions are being constantly manipulated through media, through all kinds of different ways. And I'm not saying anything is bad, but it's happening on an industrial scale, and considering the global climate change that we're experiencing, anything happening on an industrial scale is inherently imbalanced and therefore is destined to fail, because it's like we're using way too many resources for what is required, and eventually we'll run out of resources. But that is exactly how magic works. Magic works in any capacity, whether or not you believe it or not, by affecting the imagination of the creatures. And because I say creatures because it could be any beings on this planet, without their knowledge or their consent prior to whatever action or whatever spell you cast. Seven explains on this YouTube video, and you can find this YouTube video on my blog, devaughn.org. Devaughn spelled DVAUGHN.org. Seven explains in several hours. I'm like, oh my God, I have to go through so many fucking hours of research to figure out that there are certain words, certain aspects, and certain arrangements of those words that must be present for any of our reality to exist. That's basically what Seven is saying. Now, we need to run a randomized controlled study or whatever it is to validate these things, but you can find evidence of this in nature. And that's what you're going to learn about. That's why we're going to learn about, or that's why I'm going to teach you about the different origins of words like Satan and Lucifer, because it seems like they have those words and those combinations of letters and sounds need to exist. And certain aspects of language must exist in general for social conditioning to work. Those aspects of language, like certain sounds and alliterations, must be present, but they do not have to be understood by the receiver. If you open Google right now and search for the ancient statue of Venus, you will find that early depictions of the goddess Venus represented a pregnant woman, like a very heavy-set pregnant woman with big boobs and a big stomach. And back then, this goddess was the symbol of life and abundance, just like in certain cultures, in Buddhism, people that have weight on them are considered more spiritually developed or whatever it is, or more well fed, and then therefore inherently spiritually developed. Later in time, ancient people took that symbol of Venus, this goddess of Venus, and reimagined her as a much skinnier white woman bursting out of a clamshell. And you can see this progression throughout art history. Certain scholars attribute this change in imagery to beliefs that Venus was so fertile as a being that she could have sex with any being that she wanted and have babies. There were certain times in history that she was dubbed the mother of monsters because her children were rumored to be as big as planets. Ancient stories still suggest that Earth is one of those early children, and we are on that planet. Other planets like Mars and Saturn, where the word Satan comes from, are also children of this genderless angel named Venus. And she was renamed and reimagined into a genderless angel for some odd reason later in time. And there was also, and I don't know if you really know much about like European history, but before the Catholics took over, the Muslims were in power, and they were called the Moors. And during this time, before the Catholic Church took everything and made it evil, the Moors believed that she was an angel, because Muslims do believe in angels. But not only was she an angel, but that she was the carrier of light. So that dark light, or the light that exists between molecules and between atoms, or that's created, like if you smash two particles together, there's light that comes off of it. But that light that the ancient people referred to and didn't understand that we'd have verbiage for today, that light is called DNA. And the Moors conquered Spain, so the Moors created, the first foundation. They attributed a lot of their language to what we speak today. And in Spanish, la luz means light. Lucifer means the carrier of light. Venus, back in that time, was also named the carrier of light. Her name was changed to Lucifer. So all of these symbols that represented light and abundance and all of these things were then changed by the Romans. And in order to mean something dark. But I wanted to also, before I got to that, the original meaning of these ancient stories were testaments of the only source of unbroken knowledge, which is nature. So it doesn't matter what happens, what we do to this planet, it doesn't matter, because there are so many redundancies to this unbroken chain of information that even if we perish, that chain will still live on, and our DNA most likely will still live on as well, but just in a different form. Everything that exists in nature exists in your body. Every mineral, every atom, everything. It exists in your body in a trace amount. And you are carriers of that light. You're basically a fiber optic cable. You're looking like Google Fios or whatever the fuck it is, or Verizon. And if you know anything about fiber optic cables, is that we can encode data in light and send it across wires. But in our case, because we can transmit data and transmit frequencies without the presence of any medium, we can also encode. Our data is encoded as light in our DNA. So, and that'll be another part of our series, is like understanding like what the fuck is light? Like if we can encode data in light, then like is light a wave or a particle? Well, it's neither, because it's a field. It's an anterior effect of perturbations of ether. And whether or not you understand that, if you want to learn more information about ether, you can email me, host@centersun21.com. I'll give you information. But it's just like how we freak out when there's an endangered species. And it's not a joke. It's like, oh my God, save the whales, because once we lose that chain, we've broken our chain of knowledge. And humans are beginning to corrupt this unbroken transfer of knowledge, or this unbroken encoding of light. So, if the original meaning of Lucifer is opposite of what we actually consider Lucifer to be today, then what about the word Satan? And what about other words like God and Jesus? That is why we're going to have to break down this series into several parts. Your entire language has been turned upside down because these words like Satan and Yahweh and Jesus and Lucifer, they resonate inside of your body and they resonate inside of your mind. So there's a certain part of us that are like, well, don't fix what's not broken, just modify it and make it a little bit more evil. But you don't know how deep the impact is on your psyche, on your mind. I'm going to share with you a few suggestions, to combat all of this. So, I mean, it can be really scary, but I'm not fear-based. I am information and evidence-based. And regardless of whether or not you're being manipulated by your government or whatever it is, you can combat all of this. And to combat this, I always suggest reminding you that you are a supreme being that cannot be contained in a physical reality. So to combat the social conditioning that you have endured is nearly impossible. Like I said earlier, these ideas may be embedded in the very forms of media you consume daily. So it might not even be worth your effort to sort through every single piece of information. You can just use your supreme beingness to understand you are not actually the amalgamation of your experiences. You are not the total sum of your memories, and you're not the total sum of how other people perceive you. You are the observer of this reality. You create value. You assign value, and you disseminate information based on your observations. So, at the top of the show, I mentioned the sad truth that most people don't value reading or learning in any capacity. Well, that's because most people rely on a patchwork of personalities they encounter on a daily basis. So you are so committed to being liked by your peers that you forget whether you even like yourself. You say you're tired of being lonely, but you forget that you are actually not alone because of the collective consciousness. You are more than someone's boss or someone's mom or someone's dad. You are not to be given away like an object in marriage. But don't get me wrong. Your ego is your greatest survival tool because it is the most visible self that is subjective to how others see you. And I want you to understand that anything can be an addiction. So you can be addicted to the approval of others. I want you to combat peer pressure, and by doing so, you can focus on being perception free. Focus on not adding value to something, just observing it. And that means being who you would like others to see you. And you can do that by adapting your personality to fit the situation. You create the personality. You don't have to. You are able to construct a self that you dream exists in the world. Just like Beyonce is creating this whole new Beyonce. Every day you wake up and you're different. Literally, spiritually, figuratively. It is your job to wake up every day and find out why you're so unique and how you can be more unique. You are allowed to have an ego because it's simply... Think of your ego as like free-floating joy in your body. Even though you can go to extremes managing your ego and not recognizing it as an equal part of your body, you are still in a relationship with your emotions, and you're in a relationship with your ego. And that's why I keep telling you to strive for equilibrium in your body. So meditation, healthy eating, aerobics, 20 minutes a day. There is no one-size-fits-all approach, so you must serve yourself first. You have to find who you are first. And I'm not talking about abandoning humility and being selfish, because humility is not thinking less of yourself. It means that you think of yourself just a little bit less. And by focusing on what is necessary for you to be happy and healthy, you can start extending that same wisdom to people, just like the people asking you for money on the street. So, as long as you are at the center of your own sun, you don't need to be at the center of everyone's attention in society. Just make society the center of your attention, okay? And service to others the center of your attention. And by practicing carrying your light, you'll start learning to use your power for good. So, thank you for listening. And I would like for you to visit my blog, Dvaughan.org, DVAUGHN. And then I want you to have a wonderful day. Take care.